Have you ever noticed reality hesitate for a split second, like a skipped frame in a video game, right before something impossible happens? An old song you haven't heard in years plays the moment you think of it, or a stranger repeats the exact words you were just saying in your head. Most people brush it off as coincidence, but that uneasy feeling afterward, the quiet sense that something is off, doesn't go away. It lingers, because part of you knows that what you experienced wasn't random. It felt precise, timed, almost intentional. Here's the unsettling truth no one prepared you for. When reality starts behaving like that, it's not breaking down, it's responding. What you call déjà vu, synchronicity, or good timing may actually be moments when your quantum consciousness briefly slips out of autopilot and touches a hidden layer of reality most people never notice. This is why manifesting felt like shouting into the void for you. You were trying to force outcomes from the surface, while the deeper system that governs the hidden reality never even registered you as awake. Science has quietly been circling this idea for decades. At the quantum level, observation isn't passive. It changes outcomes. Reality doesn't wait for effort or positive thinking. It responds to awareness. And when awareness begins to shift, the system reacts in subtle ways first. Repeated numbers, improbable meetings, the sense that time bends, that life is nudging you instead of pushing back. These aren't signs of success yet. They're diagnostic signals. They mean something in you is starting to come online. But here's the part almost no one tells you. Once these glitches appear, you're standing at a threshold. Ignore them, and reality snaps back into its old pattern. Recognize them, and the rules you thought governed your life quietly begin to change. And the next sign that confirms this is already closer than you think. And before we go any further, understand this. Moments like these aren't meant to be consumed passively. When you acknowledge them, you strengthen the signal. When you ignore them, they fade. That's why this isn't about support or algorithms. It's about coherence. When you press like on this video, you're not endorsing me. You're anchoring this message into the field, signaling that this frequency deserves to propagate. And if you choose to subscribe, you're not joining a channel. You're stepping into a quiet movement of people who refuse to sleepwalk through a hidden reality. There's one more thing, and it matters more than it seems. In the comments, write this exact sentence. I notice the pattern. Don't explain it. Don't justify it. Just place it there. That single act creates a point of recognition between you, this moment, and everyone else who sees it. Now that the intention is set, it's time to ground this in something deeper than intuition, because what you're about to hear isn't belief or philosophy. It's where quantum science quietly confirms what you've already been sensing. What finally shattered the old story of a passive universe came from an experiment so unsettling that even physicists resisted its implications for decades. In 1978, at Princeton University, physicist John Archibald Wheeler proposed and helped formalize what became known as the delayed choice experiment. Building on the double-slit work that began with Thomas Young and later quantum refinements, Wheeler asked a question that still disturbs science today. What if the behavior of a particle is not decided until the moment it is observed? In this experiment, photons were sent through a system where the choice to observe them as particles or waves was made after the photon had already passed the critical point. According to common sense, the photon should have already decided what it was. But the results showed something impossible. The photon behaved as if it knew how it would be observed in the future. Measurement didn't just reveal reality, it defined it retroactively. This was the observer effect stripped of comfort. Conscious observation wasn't reacting to the quantum field, it was shaping it. And this means that you are not living inside a fixed world that simply unfolds on its own. It means your state of awareness is constantly negotiating with reality beneath the surface. When you feel life resist you, stall you, or repeat the same patterns, it may not be punishment or bad luck. It may be coherence, or the lack of it, because the quantum field does not respond to effort. It responds to alignment. If this feels personal, it should. Most people spend their lives trying to force outcomes while remaining internally fragmented. That inner noise cancels the signal. But when consciousness expansion begins, even subtly, reality reacts first with instability. Delays, loops, signs that seem too precise to ignore. These aren't rewards yet, they're calibration. What science accidentally revealed is that observation is not just watching, it is participation. And if that's true, then the real question isn't whether reality listens to you. It's what happens when it finally starts listening differently. Because the next principle explains why some people break through while others stay trapped, no matter how hard they try. What Wheeler's experiment hinted at becomes even more unsettling when you look at what modern science discovered next about coherence and resonance. In the 1990s, researchers at the HeartMath Institute in California began studying the interaction between human physiology and external electromagnetic fields. What they found challenged the idea that the brain is the primary driver of perception. The heart, which generates an electromagnetic field thousands of times stronger than the brain, was shown to shift its rhythm patterns based on emotional and attentional states. More importantly, when those rhythms became coherent, measurable changes appeared not only inside the body, but in the surrounding field. This wasn't metaphor. Instruments detected synchronization between internal biological rhythms and external environmental signals. In other words, when internal noise dropped and coherence increased, the quantum field around the individual became more ordered. And this explains why moments of intuition don't feel like thoughts, they feel physical. A sudden stillness in the chest, a tingling along the spine, a quiet clarity that arrives before language. Those sensations aren't imagination, they're feedback. Your nervous system registering alignment before your mind catches up. And this explains why so many people report the same strange pattern right before a personal shift. Heightened sensitivity, sharper perception, time feeling elastic, emotions surfacing without warning. It's not breakdown, it's resonance adjusting. When consciousness stops scattering itself across fear, memory, and anticipation, the body becomes a tuning instrument. And reality responds to tuned instruments differently than to noise. If you've felt moments where everything suddenly makes sense, followed by doubt or exhaustion, you're not failing, you're recalibrating. Resonance is demanding because it exposes what's misaligned. That's why awakening is rarely comfortable. It brings relief and vulnerability at the same time. You begin to see where you've been forcing life instead of listening to it. And this is where it becomes human. Because once you realize reality responds to coherence, the next question is unavoidable. What happens when someone has spent years disconnected from their own signal? That answer doesn't come from physics. It comes from honesty. And that's where we're going next. There's a side of this understanding that rarely gets talked about, and it has nothing to do with power. It has to do with weight. When you start seeing how reality actually responds, it becomes harder to play along with the old scripts. Conversations feel shallow. Goals that once motivated you lose their charge. You begin to notice how often people are reacting instead of choosing. And that awareness can feel isolating, not because you're better than anyone else, but because you can't unsee the patterns anymore. There were moments when I questioned whether knowing this was worth it. Moments of doubt where I wondered if it would have been easier to stay distracted, to keep chasing outcomes instead of understanding systems. When you realize how deeply the ego relies on control, certainty, and external validation, you feel it fracture. And that fracture can feel like fear, like standing between worlds with no clear place to belong. If you've felt that quiet loneliness, that sense of being awake in a room where everyone else is asleep, there's nothing wrong with you. It's a natural phase of integration. Awareness expands faster than identity can adjust, and the ego resists not because it's evil, but because it was built to survive. not to see clearly. If something in this resonates, you don't need to declare it or prove it. Just stay with it. There are others here who recognize the same signal even if they've never had the words for it. This isn't about separating yourself from the world. It's about learning how to move through it without losing yourself. Because once the ego stops fighting for control, something else becomes possible. Not dominance over reality, but partnership with it. And that's where real power begins to emerge. What you've been calling a flaw was never a defect. The sensitivity, the overthinking, the feeling that you don't quite fit into the rhythm everyone else seems comfortable following. Those weren't signs that something was wrong with you. They were early indicators of perception expanding beyond its default settings. When consciousness begins to widen, it first feels like friction, like seeing too much, feeling too deeply, questioning what others accept without pause. But through the lens of everything we've explored, that difference takes on a new meaning. The science points to it quietly but consistently. The observer effect showed that reality is not fixed until awareness interacts with it. Resonance research revealed that coherence inside you organizes the field around you, and the instability you felt along the way was never failure. It was recalibration. Your nervous system, your attention, your identity adjusting to a wider bandwidth of information. In this moment, right now, nothing is being demanded of you. No technique, no belief, just recognition. The patterns you noticed, the moments that felt like glitches, the sense that life was nudging you instead of resisting you, all of that was feedback. Evidence that you were never broken, only perceiving more than you were taught how to process. Here's the master key most people never receive. Reality doesn't reward effort, desire, or repetition. It responds to the quality of awareness meeting the present moment. That's why trying harder never worked, but noticing changed everything. And once that recognition locks in, the game subtly shifts. You stop chasing outcomes and start influencing conditions. But there's one unsettling question left hanging, and it matters more than any answer so far. If consciousness shapes reality and awareness can expand, then what determines how far that expansion can go? Is there a natural limit, or has it simply never been tested deliberately? That question isn't meant to be solved today. It's meant to follow you. Because the next step isn't about understanding more. It's about what happens when perception itself becomes intentional. And once that door opens, reality doesn't glitch anymore. It starts responding in ways you can't unsee. Before you leave, seal this moment deliberately. In the comments, write this exact line. I choose coherence over noise. Don't add context. Don't explain it. That sentence isn't for performance. It's a marker, a signal that you recognized yourself in what was said and chose awareness over autopilot. When others see it, they'll know they're not alone either. If this perspective resonates, understand what subscribing actually means here. It isn't about updates or notifications, it's alignment. It's choosing to remain inside a space where hidden reality is examined without distortion, where consciousness isn't sensationalized, but understood. This channel isn't built for everyone. It's built for those who feel the pull to see clearly, even when clarity changes everything. And if this conversation unsettled you in a productive way, don't stop here. The next video goes further and doesn't soften the implications. The simulation has a glitch. 3 signs you've finally woken up. Your consciousness brought you here. What happens now is your choice.